Hello, hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Career Congregation. This week, I believe, is episode 37, which is very exciting. I'm solo this week. As you can see, I have decided to give you guys another kind of, not necessarily a life update, but some more stuff about me. And I've had a lot of questions lately. People that I work with and podcast listeners have had more questions about kind of where I'm going, what I'm doing, what's going on with my business. So I thought I would share some of that and reflecting on last week's episode with the wonderful Olaide, where we discussed the art of pivoting in life and in career. I'm in the midst of a pivot right now, so I thought I would talk about it with everyone and hope to be sort of an example for anyone else who is, I don't know, either solo employed or has their own business, or even, is working in a big company but wants to sort of shift maybe to another team or another department or have different responsibilities. The kind of resilience and adaptability that comes with being able to take these pivots. So I am still in Portugal. I've been here since the end of December. I did a few weeks in Lisbon, and I have spent the better part of the last month in the south of Portugal in the Algarve. It's been very, very productive. So I've been with my friend and fellow therapist, also who was a former podcast guest, Deborah Craig. We have rented this villa together that my friends own. It's the off season, so it's been really, really good. It's just quiet, super quiet. A lot of things are closed, but we're near the beach and we're in a beautiful villa. So we just kind of like get up and just get on with our business planning every day. And it's been a really good kind of planning session for the year, and definitely something that I'm going to be adopting every year. So, and also, Portugal is lovely, obviously really good food and typically decent weather. We have been hit with hurricane type weather the last few weeks. It's been pretty wild. There was one night where I felt like the roof was going to be ripped off the villa. The wind was 120 kilometers per hour, which is pretty wild. And like dams broke, rivers flooded. A number of people passed away very sadly. So it's no joke. It wasn't like, a thunderstorm. It was like pretty big weather fronts that have been moving through here. So I guess this is what you get when you're so close to the coast, and it is winter. So it's been pretty crazy, but everyone has said that this is extremely unusual. It's like the most rain and storms that they've had in like 60 years. So that in itself has been an experience. Also, the timing of that with like this end of the year of the snake, everything's shedding, all these like things are being stripped away, and we're entering aggressively into this new year in like I think in a week and a half, to the year of the fire horse. And that's going to be a very fast moving energy if you're into Chinese astrology, which I prefer going with Chinese astrology for when the year starts than with the Western calendar. So anyways, I'm still in Portugal. Over the weekend, I'm going to be moving to another part of the country. I've never been to Porto, and I've heard nothing but good things, and it's a very beautiful city. And again, also compared to London and Ireland, which is, where I have been living for the last many years, specifically London, but then Ireland since last summer. I've been in Ireland. Both places very, very expensive. So it's nice to be able to come here for a few months and really just sort of like save some money, spend less on accommodation, whatever. So I've been very adaptable it's taken a lot. Like with this year of the snake, the shedding, like I have gotten rid of so much stuff. I still have some things with a friend in London. They've let me keep some, like a couple boxes at their place. And then I've got a couple boxes in storage in Dublin, and that's really it. And then I've got 2 big suitcases here with me. But even that, it's like too much. So I'm still, even for me to go back to Ireland, I'm like, I don't want to pay for this second bag. And it's been so quiet here. I've hardly, haven't really been like going out dressing up. Like this is the first time I've even like put on something nice and in like a week and a half. So gonna be another getting rid of tons of, well, not tons, but I'm gonna try and consolidate and get my stuff down into one suitcase before I leave. So it's just this constant shedding. But yes, I have been able to get myself to be into this position of being quite nomadic. Being a digital nomad is not my life goal. It was when I was in my 20s and probably into my 30s, but now that I'm in my early 40s, being a digital nomad is not my life goal, despite the fact that I am kind of living that way. My goal and what I am looking to do is to have permanent residency, potentially citizenship in the EU. So I'm working my way back in slowly but surely, and my company is being set up in Ireland. So been a bit of back and forth between Ireland, checking out Portugal, and just like constantly trying to stay up to speed on all the changes in visas and like cross-border regulations and tax stuff and Schengen rules and EU rules, and just making sure I like can follow all the things. And now my latest thing is that I'm pretty sure next time I am back in Schengen, which is the area of the EU where you can kind of like travel from country to country as essentially without having to go through immigration. When I return, I think I'm going to be exploring Spain, because Spain has a new visa, which seems like something I might want to explore. And yeah, anyways, but I'm really enjoying Portugal. I've had a good time here and it's been very productive. So this pivot that I've been doing, aside from just the fact that I've like completely changed my life, pivoted to leave London, I also feel that it would be silly for me not to share a bit with you guys and try and connect with more people who are also experiencing these huge life changes, right? Obviously, we live in a world where globalization is, it's becoming a more common thing. We're all so well connected, from social media to podcasts to, like blogs and websites and, WhatsApp and other apps. Everyone's just a touch of a button away, which is really great. But at the same time, when you do these big moves, cross-border, even just moving home, like to another part of the same city even, it's a huge upheaval. And so many people have been like, oh my God, how do you do this? Like, isn't it scary? Like, I've been hearing that since I was so young. And for me, no, it's not scary. And it's actually, it's kind of like one of my superpowers. And so it's definitely something that I'm very well equipped to help people with, like to hold your hand and help you regulate and get through these big changes. It's an area where I really would like to be directing my practice as a therapist and as a coach. It's something that I really can help people with. So I have been, so like a little bit of backstory about me, like before Career Congregation started, my kind of international experience and upbringing started when I was 6. So I was born in the United States. Obviously I have a US, like an American accent, as you can hear, unto American parents. Both, my father is originally from Pennsylvania. My mother is originally from California. My dad's job took him all around the world. And when my parents had me, they were living in Maryland, but they were, we don't have family there. I'm not like, I don't consider myself to be from Maryland as in having a base there. That's where I was born. That's where my dad had a work contract. I haven't been back there in a very long time. I really don't have any ties to Maryland. So when people are like, where in the States are you from? I just say, I'm like, well, I'm from London. So when I was 6, my father's job moved my older sister, me, and my mom and my dad. We all were moved to London, or Surrey, which is just southwest of the city. So our house was in Surrey, and I grew up in the UK, having the experience of being an expat. So I've been an expat since I was 6 years old. Grew up in Surrey in the UK, always as an American citizen living in the UK. But then I think I was 12 or 13 when I then became a British citizen as well. And then when I finished high school, my parents moved to California for a while, and I stayed on in the UK on my own. Well, I did a gap year, but I stayed on in the UK on my own. I did end up finishing university. I transferred and I finished in California, but I really did not enjoy it. So I came back to London and then moved to a couple of different countries. And so I really got a taste of like living abroad, I guess as an expat or, solo female. I had a couple work contracts. So I came back to London after university. I was only in London for, I think, like two and a bit years. And then I got an offer in Mexico. So I moved to Mexico and I worked with a travel startup in Mexico for like 2 years. And then after Mexico, I did a short stint with my parents in California and really knew I didn't want to live there because I had sort of tried that during university and I was like, this place is not for me. So then I went to Australia and I did a year in Australia, followed by a stint in Bali and then back to the UK. And I've been in the UK ever since until this past summer. And it was just this past summer. So that was like a good 11-year stretch of me living and working in London. So I really feel out of all the places I've been in my life and lived and worked, London is feels like what would be home for me. So it was a bit of an upheaval and a reminder this past summer when I decided I don't want my business to be in London. I don't want to be a resident in the UK anymore. I want to go back into the EU. I want to be able to have freedom of movement. I really miss that. As many of you know, I'm not a fan of Brexit. And so I moved to Ireland because Ireland is still part of the EU. And if you're British, you can live in Ireland. And it's a really good country to entrepreneurs and females. So I am forming my limited company in Ireland, and I am also a Fitzpatrick. So that feels very authentic to me. And I've been really fortunate so far in the time that I have spent there. I've met some really, really amazing people who I know will be lifelong friends. So it's been a really good experience for me, but I'm still, toe dipping into other countries in Europe and sort of exploring options because, I just, I can do that. The position that I'm in, I'm able to do that. So I'm exploring it while I can. And so I've spent the last few months in Portugal, and I have to say all of these expat things coming up, and I experienced it in Ireland too. All the pain points that come up with moving country. Like, it's so easy on paper to be like, I'm gonna move to this place, I'll put my stuff in storage, I'll get an Airbnb, like no big deal. But you have to sort of appreciate like how dysregulating that is and can be to your nervous system and everything that goes along with that. So it was like I got to Ireland and I had just like boxed up or gotten rid of everything from my life in London for like the previous decade. And I still was, working. My practice is entirely online now, which is great. But I was absolutely like shattered. And the last year that I had in London, like it was very difficult for me to take the decision to leave because it's always felt like my home. But it was feeling less and less like the London that I know and love over the past couple of years. It's been quite sad, quite hard to process that. So I think I had a lot of like personal processing that I needed to do around kind of letting go of London and the life that I thought I was going to have there, because I really thought things would go differently for me in London. But I think that there's a lot to be said for sort of the way things flow. And when things are starting to get really difficult and there's lots and lots and lots of blocks, I think that that's something that we need to pay attention to. The energy of like swimming upstream. Everything shouldn't be a battle. And the last like year and a half, 2 years that I was in London, it was like a constant, like, just like with housing and bills and relationship stuff and like friendships ending, and it was just one thing after another, and it was really hard. And it took a lot from me. I'm obviously, a therapist, and I've worked in the wellness space for a long time now, so I know how to like look after myself, but I felt really like tired and worn down from that experience. So I went to Ireland, and what I really, really needed was rest and relaxation and safety and security. And that element has been very up in the air for me for the last kind of since July. So I've just bounced around a lot, and the place that I thought was going to be kind of my long-term home in Ireland, I got there and it very quickly wasn't the right fit. So I made do, and I kind of made it work for a short amount of time. But then I was like, I'm not going to stay here for long term. So again, everything kind of went back into storage around the holidays, and I've been very kind of nomadic since the holidays. Really had wanted to check out Portugal when I initially moved to Ireland. So when I put my stuff back in storage around the holidays, I said, well, I'm literally a free agent right now, so it makes a lot of sense for me to explore Portugal, especially in the coldest, darkest months of winter in Ireland. So alas, I have been in Portugal for the last few months, and it has been a really great experience. Again, also like have made some really amazing friends. I've had some great times here. But the expat stuff, all the things that come with being an expat, some of those things have really flared up for me, and I know that this is kind of my area, right? Like this is something I'm so well versed in, so experienced in. Going to a new country, trying to open a bank account, getting a permanent address, getting health insurance, like navigating the native language not being my mother tongue, like all of these things I have navigated so many times in my life. So I'm definitely, I've worked with quite a few international and sort of people doing cross-border life over the years, but I definitely feel very well versed in doing that kind of work. So if there's anyone listening that is having an experience of moving, the loneliness, the relational strain that comes with it, it can be really challenging. People who it can be challenging from a dating or romantic relationship perspective, but it can also be challenging just on friendships. Your day-to-day friendships take a hit as well, when you're suddenly not there. And I've really seen it with people over the years. Some people are great. Like one of my best friends lives in Australia, and I actually, out of all of my friends, probably speak to her more than anyone. And she is literally the farthest person away from me. So some people are really good at maintaining friendships and, relationships over long distances and navigating the time differences and like voice notes and whatever. And other people, if you're not immediately in their sort of, like day to day energy circle, then when you leave, you can really drop off their radar. And that can be quite painful as well. So I've definitely experienced both of those. And the school that I attended growing up in the UK was an international school. So for people who aren't familiar, like when I tell people that I went to an international school, they're like, okay. But basically, international schools tend to have a lot of expats. So people who are living in another country through a work contract, typically just for a couple years, and then they go back to whatever country they're from. That means that the student body population at international schools changes drastically every school year. So I went to this school from the age of 6 until the age of 18, and like 60 to 70% of the student body population would change every year. So there's like lots of new kids every year. So I know what it's like to be the new kid, because I was when I was little. And then having to make a whole new group of friends pretty much every school year. It's very rare that someone would stay from sort of like first grade all the way through high school like I did. There was only a few of us at my school who had that experience, and we're all still quite close. But most people would only, come for a few years, and then they'd go back to, it was people from all around the world, my school. So we, like quite a few like oil and gas exec kids. We had a lot of kids from Nigeria, Uganda, Mexico, China, Brazil, Japan, lots of different countries in Europe, some people from Scandinavia, Russia, like literally the whole world. It's just like, it was quite the experience. And people come for a few years and then they leave again. I also wanted to touch on, there's this concept that I actually wrote a blog about it a few years ago, the first time I heard it, but it is really what I am. And I think anyone who's had the international school experience, or even just two parents from different places that raised them somewhere else, it's TCK is the abbreviation, and it stands for third culture kid. So it's typically like, oftentimes it's the parents are from two different backgrounds, and then they move you and you're raised somewhere else. And so it's like your third culture. And I feel like I have really embraced being a TCK my whole life. It's really stands out when you like go back to where you're from. So for me, like Maryland, I think the last time I went to Maryland, I don't know, I couldn't have been more than like 15 or 16. So it was a long time ago. But really by the time I was like 10 or 11, even going back and visiting, it wasn't my home anymore. It was so different. I didn't connect with the people at all. Like I was living on a different continent, having completely different experiences in school than my counterparts in the US. But then it kind of like isolates you, because it's like you don't really connect with your parents, and the upbringing that they had. And you also don't connect with the people from where you used to be from. But then I think the struggle with international school is that people come and go so much that in itself can be quite lonely. So like the goodbyes, the upheavals around the goodbyes, I think that was one of the most challenging things. Like when I reflect on my time at my international school, it was such an amazing experience. And to have my like network of friends be literally from all around the world, every continent that people inhabit. I had friends from growing up. You know, by the time I was like 15, I had friends from absolutely everywhere, which was amazing. But the goodbyes, the moving, the leaving, every single school year, that was the hardest thing. So I always say, like, you know, if I have kids, then I would want them to go to an international school because I think it's such an incredible experience. But it's really the moving and the leaving and the goodbyes every year is really hard. So that is definitely something that shaped me. But anyways, I just wanted to touch on that. So if any of you are parents or you have kids that are going to a school, or you've recently moved, or you're feeling bad about it, because I know a lot of parents have a lot of guilt. I see it a lot. One of our rival schools when I was growing up was also like a military school, and I know that the military brat experience, right, that they move a lot. So I think that that might be the only demographic of kids that move more than typical international school kids, because in the military it's like so changeable. So I've definitely have a lot of lived experience with all of that. So if anyone wants to talk about it, give me a shout, and I'd be more than happy to help you navigate those transitions, because I understand how dysregulating they can be. And just, yeah, the ability to the resilience that you develop, and the sort of the confidence. I think people can either collapse into an experience like that because they're not so good at putting themselves out there, or you're sort of forced to rise to the occasion. And I think by the time I finished high school, I was very good at making connections, meeting people, and like, you know, yeah, starting fresh every year with a new group of friends. So anyways, all these expat things been coming up, and I've had people be like, "Oh my God, aren't you like lonely or like isolated on what you're doing right now?" And I'm like, no. I've met so many people, and I continue to meet people and make friends, and it's great. But I know that that's not something that comes naturally to a lot of people. And I also have not had the experience of being born and living in a place my whole life. That's not something I've ever experienced. So I don't feel like there's like a home that I've been removed from. So when this like loneliness feeling comes up, it's not, that's not a, I don't know, I don't have like a home that I miss, right? I see London in movies, like when I watch Love Actually, you know, and Hugh Grant talks about people landing at Heathrow Airport. Heathrow Airport is actually, when people tell me to think of home, that's the first place I think of, is Heathrow Airport. And like sometimes I do get emotional when I land at Heathrow, because like throughout my life there's been so many breaks and years that I will have been away from London, and then my plane kind of descends into the airspace over London, and then I land at London Heathrow, and I'll like well up with tears because it's like all my formative years were there. But you know, I when I go there now, it's like none of those people that made London home for me are there now, you know? There's a few people, but like, yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't have this attachment, right? So it's quite easy for me to be able to bounce around and experience new cultures, be an explorer, which is one of my pillars when I work. I call them internal compass points with my clients, but it's like the things that really like make you tick. I like to ask lots of questions, and then we narrow it down to a couple different categories. And one of the things for me is adventure and exploration. So it's important for me to be able to have these experiences. It helps me be the fullest expression of myself. And it's a way that I've been fortunate enough to be able to live since I was very young. But I also appreciate that it's very unusual and it's not normal for most people. And so I do think that I am very well versed, and it's like one of my superpowers, and being able to help people move through these sticky times. So if anyone's listening that is an expat, or is new to this kind of life, or is, anywhere, really anywhere in the world, because I work online, but like particularly if you're in Europe and you're from Australia, or you're from Canada, or you're from the United States, and you need someone to talk to because you're feeling lonely, or like, no one understands, or you're the only one with an American accent at your workplace, or something like that, like, please just send me a message, give me a shout, and I would be more than happy to have a call with you and see if I can help you. It's definitely something I've been doing my entire life. So I have a lot of empathy for people navigating these things. So yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. I hope that answers some of the questions that people have been coming at me with lately, of like, lots of people want to know about my business and where I'm going and what I'm doing. And I hope to just keep connecting with people via the podcast. It's been such a fun way of connecting with people. And yeah, I've got like quite a few small business owners lined up coming up over the next couple weeks. So I'm excited to have them on. And yeah, just if you have any questions for me, you can find all my contact information in the show notes. So have a great week, everyone. And I look forward to speaking with you again next week. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Career Congregation. I hope it gave you something to think about or inspired you in some way. If you enjoyed this conversation, please take a moment to like, subscribe, or share this episode with someone you think it might resonate with. Every bit of support helps. If you know someone who you think would make a great guest, please send them my way via the link in the show bio. And if you'd like to support the show and the work that I do, you can buy me a coffee via the coffee link also in the show bio. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week for another conversation about all things career.